Hey, y'all. Um, let's see. I should have shared my screen with y'all, so hopefully you can see my screen. Can I get a list of hands if you can see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Perfect, and you can hear me. Good to hear. Okay, so agenda for today is we are first going to take a practice quiz to give you some familiarity with the Respondus lockdown browser and to see whether a couple of the so-called beta features that they claim work actually work. So we'll do that first. And then we are going to go into widgets and message dialogues for graphical user interfaces. So just a quick reminder about the exam. It's on Tuesday, be online on Canvas. Based on what happens today, I am hoping that you will first log into this Zoom meeting, and then you'll be able to launch the Respondus browser. You'll go into lockdown mode, and I'll ask you to start streaming video so that I can visually proctor everyone. And if that works all right, then you'll be able to ask questions. You'll also be able to mute so that you can't be disturbed by other people asking questions. So there's a way to mute in Zoom so that even if other people are talking, you can't hear them. Let's see, what else was I supposed to say? Hopefully links will work to the zyBooks into the Oracle API. Again, that's what we're going to test today, and to my website. So we're going to test all that today to see if that actually works. The exam is open note, open book. So you can type out or print out stuff. You can write stuff down. And there are, roughly speaking, 3 Java coding questions, 1 on inheritance, 1 on Java basics, and 1 on generics. So the basics also covers exception handling as part of the coding. 1 on generics, and then there's 1 question that's kind of a matching question for GUIs. There's 1 general question that kind of covers terms that we've talked about over the course of the semester, and there you're responsible for C, C++, and Java. And there's a final question that makes sure that you know how to deal properly with Java packages and how to get things working in a jar file, how to run things in a jar file, so on and so forth. So you'll have 85 minutes to complete the exam. It will start at 1:10 and it will run until 2:35 p.m. So I think I have covered most of the things there. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Will there be any sort of buffer? So let's say you join the Zoom call 5 minutes late. Like if you start the exam at 1:40, will you have until 80 minutes, or do we need to start at exactly 1:39?
Build that in, yes. I will build that in. Just be aware of the fact that some of you have a class at 25 minutes after that. So don't try to be, I guess my thing is try to arrive on time, but yes, I will probably set it so that you can get an extra, not so that if you arrive 5 minutes late, you can still slop over to like 2:40.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Are we expected to be syntactically correct on the coding questions? Like, will we be
No, just get close. I mean, I don't want egregiously bad stuff. Like,
sure.
If I, like for inheritance, I am not going to be happy if you forget that extends is the keyword you use for declaring that something is a subclass. If you say class A extend B rather than class A extends B, I'll be lenient. But if you say like class A is class B, I'm not going to be happy.
Okay.
So yeah, just this isn't about, I understand there's no way that you can, I don't want you to try to test the program that you write. I just want you to try to get the code right. Don't make egregious, because it is, you do have access to your notes. I expect the method names to be correct. I don't want to be guessing at what you mean with your syntax. Okay, so the syntax does have to be pretty close, I guess. I understand if you forget a semicolon, you forget a brace, stuff like that, I'm not going to care about.
Yeah, thank you. That was my
And like if you
anxiety.
get confused, I know that in Java it's Boolean and in C++ it's bool. If you get confused on that and you say bool, I'm also not going to come down hard on you for things like that. So I will admit it will get subjective on my part as to how egregious I think it is, but I'm going to overlook what I consider to be minor stuff. Other questions?
I think someone in chat asked if you could go over the coding questions again.
Yes, the coding questions, there will be a coding question involving Java inheritance. There will be a coding question involving writing a Java generics class. There will be a coding question over Java basics and exception handling. That question will combine Java basics with exception handling. And I guarantee you, you will have to do line-oriented input for that question. I will set it up so that you cannot complete the question by using stream-oriented IO. And with the inheritance, you're not going to be writing method bodies. You'll be writing constructors, but you'll just, with the inheritance, you'll be declaring a bunch of classes and their instance variables and method declaration prototypes, but you won't be declaring method bodies except for the constructors. Whereas the other two, you will be writing out the complete class declarations and method bodies. Other questions?
So for this quiz, will we have to have our Zoom open on our phones and then do the
I'm
quiz?
hoping not. Okay. So here's the hope. If Zoom's beta feature, if Respondus's beta feature works, which is they claim they now support Zoom meetings, you won't need your iPhone. If it doesn't work, then you'll need your smartphone. So that's what we're going to figure out today. In fact, just hopefully in a minute or two. Because without doing this practice quiz, I don't have no way of knowing whether it's going to work or not.
Right now, whenever I start up lockdown, I can't navigate to Zoom, which I assume is the functionality desired from Respondus.
Well, it was supposed to be in the background, so, but that's, I guess, good to know. So, but I haven't actually given you the quiz yet. Okay, so let's just try the quiz, okay? Let's just transition to the quiz. Don't do anything yet. Just look. First of all, I'm going to show you what's what, okay?
I have a
Pardon?
I have a question.
Yes.
How is the grading going to be broken down? Will the coding questions be worth more than the?
Yes. I think your coding questions are worth roughly something like 60 to 70 points, and the other questions are worth about 30 points. Because quite frankly, your ability to code is more important than your general knowledge. So It's definitely an emphasis on being able to code. Okay. Okay, so what is going to happen? You're going to go to the Canvas website, you're going to select quizzes, and you're going to come to assignment quizzes, and there should be one that you'll see that says Respondus Practice Quiz, requires Respondus Lockdown Browser. And when you click on it, you're going to be, I'm not giving you the access code yet because I want you to actually listen to me for a moment. So it's got one question, and all I'm asking you to do in that question is to copy this particular block of code. And what I want you to do is select the pre-formatting option in the essay thing. So if you come down to the essay thing, you see paragraph. You should select pre-format it because that will give nice spacing when you enter this code. The other thing I want you to do, other than just copying this code, is see if you can follow each of these three links. Okay, I can do it now, but that doesn't tell me anything because I'm not in the lockdown browser. So I want you to try to follow each of these three links and click around a little to see whether you can get around those websites. Okay, and I'm going to be seeing if you can hear me. So I'm going to, after you get started, you're going to hopefully hear me saying, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? And hopefully you will be able to respond by saying, yes, I can hear you. Okay, so and don't worry, I'm not grading this. I just want you to give you practice also with using that pre-formatted option. So any questions before we get started? There is an access code. You're going to be prompted twice for an access code for the exam. The access code is CS in capital letters 365. And it does turn out that one of the two cares about case. So it's uppercase CS 365. Okay, so with that, what I'd like, so let's recongregate here at 1:30. If you can't make any progress, if something is not working, we will recongregate at 1:30 p.m. Okay, so or make it 1:35 p.m. We'll be back. If you can't make stuff work, we'll be back at 1:35 p.m. Okay, so what I want you to do now is try to go to that quiz and do it. Okay, and don't get out of Zoom, but maybe you will have to actually exit your app. I guess it's going to force you to exit all applications. So exit all applications but Zoom, and then see if you can fire up the quiz or not. Okay, so go ahead and please do that.
What was the access code again?
It is CS365, capital C, capital S, 365.
I was able to follow everything.
Are you in the lockdown browser right now?
Yeah.
And you're able to take the quiz?
Yep, submitted.
Oh, sweet. And can you follow the three links?
I could indeed.
Okay, make sure that you can get to my different lecture notes, okay? Because
I've submitted already.
okay.
I was able to get to the general page, general information.
Okay. This is great. Are you able to start your video or not? That's actually the one other question I have. It's actually too late. You are already submitted. Okay. Other people, can you hear me?
I've got lockdown browser up right now. Can you still see my video?
It's working. Do you have any way to start video or not?
So I tried to do your different lecture notes links and those are blocked.
They are blocked.
And also signing into Zoom is also, or not Zoom, Zybooks is also blocked, and I can't start video.
And you can't start. Okay. So what happens? So what happens when you try to, could you get to the Oracle one or not?
I can get to the Oracle one, but let's see. Oh, okay, so the Orca website is working 100%, but I can't click any of your links inside your website or the Zybooks.
Okay, so when you start with the Zybook, you are blocked right from the outset? Or do you get to the sign-in page and then you're blocked?
So I'm on the Zybooks main webpage, and then I click sign in, and it says link is blocked.
But you were able to get to the sign-in page?
Yes.
Huh. Okay, and with my lecture notes, what happened when you clicked on it?
I see like the main page, like course information, lecture notes, but I can't click on any of those links.
Huh, okay.
I'm stuck on just trying to get into the quiz. I mean, it's stuck on the loading circle in the top right of Respondus.
Okay, for that one, why don't you back out and see whether you can do it again?
I've tried refreshing all I can.
Which
you mean
platform
restart
are you
the,
running on?
I'm on a Mac.
Huh, okay.
I couldn't unmute while I was in the quiz, but I'm having those same problems.
Me too.
You're
Me as
also,
well.
it's just spinning, huh?
Is it possible that whenever you whitelist links, it's only whitelisting that specific link rather than the website as a whole?
The Java API is working though. All the sublinks in there are working.
So the answer to your question is yes, except that Respondus specifically says that you should be able to click to anything within that domain. You're not supposed to be limited to just that one page. You're supposed to be able to, and they specifically give examples of like ealgebra.com and esomethingelse.com. So, okay.
I know also with the Zybook, I don't know if anybody else has said this, but like we have to sign in on the Zybook website itself once we get into that.
Yeah, we can't sign in.
Like it doesn't bring us straight to the book.
Right, I gotcha. Let's see. Let me try something. I wonder what happens if. Well, that's obviously not going to. Okay, so that's good to know. I guess what I'm going to have to do is try to talk to OIT, although that's probably not going to get me a whole lot.
Will we be permitted to have written notes?
Absolutely. So what I'm thinking, I'm actually somewhat grateful that the Oracle API is working, because that's the biggest issue is I think you can print out my notes, even though you have to kill a few trees. You can print out my notes. And honestly, if you print out my notes, I don't really think you need the zybook. So I think basically, I think that if you can print out my notes and you can get full access to the Oracle API, then you should be pretty set. Obviously, it'd be ideal if you could get access to zyBooks, but I will try to work on that. See,
I don't know if it was already said, but I couldn't load into any of the links on your website other than the main one.
yes, that's already been said. Basically, it looks like you can get around the Oracle website, but you can't get around my website.
Has anyone on a Mac made it into the quiz yet? I've restarted the entire lockdown app and I haven't even made it past the take the quiz button.
I did not.
Same.
Same exact problem.
Yeah.
Mac just loads.
I have the same exact problem.
All of you are Mac users?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, let's turn that around. Has anyone with a Mac succeeded in getting in with the Respondus lockdown browser?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, that's
I
good.
did.
One person. Anyone else? Okay. If you could not get into the Respondus lockdown browser, please send me an email. And the second thing I want you to do is call up OIT and the help desk. The number I think is for the help. You can't see it. When you get back to me, I will. What I'd like you to do is call up the OIT help desk and see if you can't work it out. Because if you can work it out, that's good. If you can't work it out, there's some options I can pursue with it. So if you can't get it to work, send me some email and then call up OIT after the class is over and see if you can't figure out what's going on. And I will extend the quiz so that it's got an indeterminate due date in the future so that you can try to get onto the quiz with OIT. What OIT can do is actually install software on your computer that allows it to gain access to your screen, and they can actually scroll around and do stuff. So they can actually do a lot remotely.
Is there any way you'd be able to enable like Control F or something to be able to search through the Oracle website?
No, their Respondus is pretty strict. Everything is disabled, so all you can really do is click around, I'm afraid. I apologize. You have to basically use interpolation search on those classes on the left-hand side. It has a complete list of classes on the left-hand side. So you'll just have to scroll down and find the right one. It's incredibly restrictive what you can and can't do with Respondus. One thing I'm going to try is, I'm wondering with my web pages is I specifically used .utk.edu/tilde-bbz. I'm going to see if it's if I move the link back to, so it's just if it's just web.eecs.utk.edu, if that works. So what I'll probably do is put up a second Respondus quiz and just change that link and see if y'all can then get access to my lecture notes. But if that doesn't work, you're just going to have to print them out, okay? So
Might have figured out a workaround for the zyBooks thing.
okay, what is your workaround?
If you go to the pre-class assignments on Canvas, you're
Mhm.
then able to navigate to the other chapters of Zybook.
Huh. And
Yeah, the only issue is that I'm not sure if it's possible to have two links to Canvas open at the same time.
it is, because I've certainly done that. So it might be that if I give you a link to online.utk.edu, it might work. I will give that a try too. Thank you. Okay, so we should be reassembled now. Hopefully, so if you had a problem, again, please email me, but also give OIT a call between now and Tuesday and see if you can't get it worked out with OIT, what is going wrong.
I was able to fix the problem on the Mac by running an update on Respondus. It seems like the outdated version was not going to load the Canvas page with the quiz. It's just infinitely loading, but it's fixed now with.
So it may be that you have to that there's a new update you have to load. So probably that's the first thing. Thank you. So probably the first thing to
How do you do that?
Pardon?
There's a button at the very top where there's like a help thing, and then it'll pop up a dialog that has like an about section, and then there's a check for update button on there.
Okay. So
thank you.
Okay, unfortunately I can't. Can you do that in chat? Can you actually go to chat and write down what you just said so that it might be easier for some people to look at the chat window?
Yeah, sure. Let me just verify that one.
Okay, so I just went through some of your chat messages. Let me tell you why I'm using the Respondus browser. I had 3 cheating cases, explicit, obvious cheating cases when I didn't use it last spring for my final. And I don't know, so that was 3 cheating cases I knew about. I don't know how many cheating cases there were because I didn't know about it. So basically, I understand your frustration with the Respondus lockdown browser, but it is to protect you, okay? Because like I said, I thought I could trust people and that trust was abused. And having had that trust abused, that's a significant number of cheating cases. Okay, so having had my trust abused, I'm sorry, but fool me once, shame on me, or you, fool me twice, shame on me. So yes, I understand why you're frustrated with the Respondus lockdown browser, but it's the only way that I can ensure a fair exam. Okay, because unfortunately, it's been proven to me again and again throughout my career that some students, whether I have you sign an honor code or not, whether I can't force students to play by every student to play by the rules. So I have to use things like Respondus lockdown browser in order to create as level playing field for you all as I can. Okay, and unfortunately, there is not a better tool out there that I have access to that you all can use. So I have to do the best that I can. Okay, so again, I hear some of you, I understand why you're frustrated with it, but it is what it is. Okay. So
To add on to the Mac thing, I updated and it's working just fine now. So thank you to whoever posted that. Anyone else experiencing that Mac issue, that's exactly what you need to do.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Like I said, I will probably try to put up another, Respondus Lockdown browser quiz before next Tuesday, where I twiddle with the links to see whether there's a way that I can get you access to my notes into and to Zybooks, okay? So kind of keep your eyes peeled. I'll send out a Canvas announcement about that. One thing that it did seem worked for me was, I know sometimes I get complaints. I'd like you to try to keep your stuff indented as nicely as possible on the exam. I only require 2 spaces. So hopefully you all are back right now with me. Can you all see the screen again?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So on the exam, I only require 2 spaces of indentation. That's easily enough for each indentation level, per indentation level. So that's one thing. And I had some success with copy and pasting of spaces. So you might be able to copy and paste spaces. The Respondus Lockdown browser claims that it doesn't allow you to do copy and paste, but I was able to do copy and paste when I was in the Respondus Lockdown browser. So you might be able to do copy and paste. And if you are with the Oracle APIs, so let me go to the Oracle APIs. This is what you're coming to. You can scroll through this, and I understand it's a bit of a scroll, but you can find any class that you want. So for example, if I want hash map, it's going to take me a little while to get there. In fact, I can see it's taking a whole lot of time to get there. So my recommendation would be that you only HI, let's see if I can definitely see why it takes forever to get there, but I can't really do any better than this. So there, you can at least then click through to hash map. What I would recommend is that you create a you print out the most common things we use. And I will just tell you things that I would have. You should have something for the scanner class. You will probably need to have it for a list, a map, a set. So anything that works, these are the interfaces, and you will assign to them like a hash map or a hash set or an array list, but the operations that you need will be from these interfaces. Let's see.
I have a question
the
about.
other one is you might need is, I think it's the Q class. Basically the top level interfaces. So basically the top level interfaces in the collections.
I have a question whenever you're done with this.
Yes, let's see. And then that should be enough, actually. I think if you have those, I'll check, but I think if you printed out the API for the scanner class, the list, map, set, and queue classes, not classes, interfaces, you should be pretty much okay. Yes, question.
Okay, so practically, we sign into lockdown, we have your notes printed out. The way lockdown works is it tracks our eyes slash face. If anybody's like looking down at your notes, wouldn't that flag us for cheating? And then also, how would that prevent someone from just looking down at their phone or iPad or whatever else and saying that they're looking at your notes?
There's a limit to what I can or can't do, but I found that when I looked at the video footage, it was pretty easy to tell whether someone was doing something nefarious or not. And by the way, some of you may have to use the restroom. That's okay. Understand that that happens. There's only so much I can do, but it's still, it is what it is. I felt like I could handle things pretty well by being able to view the logs.
Okay, I just wondered because I know that Respondus flags things pretty easily. So.
Yep, I know. It's but it's very, on my end, it's very easy to check the logs.
Gotcha.
Okay. Other questions?
Will there be partial credit for the coding problems?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And like, are you going to go through and grade them
by hand
individually after the exam?
I'm not compiling them or anything. I'm going to look at it. I'm grading everything by hand. Unlike the TAs who are using, you don't have anywhere near enough time to code it up and make sure it works properly. There's
no I was just wondering. Yeah.
Not only that, you don't have access to something. You don't have access to a compiler or an execution environment. So, yeah, I'm hand grading. Almost everyone will have some syntax errors and some other things yeah, there'll definitely be partial credit.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to know if we, like, let's say don't know how to answer something and we, write an explanation for what we're thinking, like we can still at least get some partial credit, or if we like don't have time to answer a question.
But you're not going to get a lot of points for that. I mean, I do want to see what the code looks like. So it is
okay. I understand.
Yeah. To translate your thinking into a workable program. But
yeah, that makes sense.
You can still get some points for just putting down what your thinking is. Other questions?
So because like the Zoom didn't work, will we have to use our phone for the Zoom meeting, or can we use our phone for the
guess
Zoom?
it worked for a lot of people. It apparently did not work for you. Yes, so you'll have to use your smartphone then if Zoom did not work for you. So for those of you who were unable to use Zoom while you were working with it, with the Respondus Lockdown browser, please also send me an email, and you will have to use your phone. But also try to, before you do that, try to download the latest version of the Respondus Lockdown browser, because this Zoom feature is a beta feature. So if you downloaded it even last semester, it might not support the Zoom feature. So please make sure you have the latest version of the Respondus Lockdown browser. So that could also be a problem.
I think I have the latest, but I could hear people on the Zoom. I just couldn't it would flash every if I wanted to try to unmute. So I couldn't do that.
But that's always a problem. It might be that other people I was having a pretty constant interaction with people. So it might have been that you just couldn't get a word in. I'll also be checking the chat feature during the exam.
So my Zoom, oh, go ahead, sorry.
No, just during the exam, you should also be able to use the chat feature to ask a question.
With my MacBook, when I started the quiz, Zoom was unavailable to me. I think my camera was still on and I could hear what was happening, but I didn't have access to like the chat or to the Zoom window to turn off mute or turn on mute.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's everybody.
Yeah, as
So how do you
Yeah, so
help then? Like,
Okay, so the chat feature wasn't working. Is that the problem?
No, I couldn't access Zoom at all.
Okay,
it
so
was
you could
completely
hear people, but you
completely
couldn't.
background.
Okay,
You would
so
have
it
to unmute
might be
yourself
necessary
before.
in that case to still, what I would say is it would be acceptable to also have a separate login to Zoom on your smartphone.
By separate, do you mean we wouldn't have to have Zoom on our computer if we had it on our phone?
Yes.
Okay, and would it? I
But you'll
assume you'd
need
still
to
want it.
kind of orient the phone so I can see you. I'll want, in that case, yeah.
Okay, I mean, is it okay if it's a little off to the side? Because I
Yes,
can't exactly,
absolutely. Yes.
Okay, then I prefer to do that. I'm going to do that
Yeah,
then.
okay.
Thank you.
So yeah, I will send out an email that's okay to also use your phone to join the Zoom session. Okay. Let me, if you may have more questions, but I actually do need to cover some material today. So I will take more questions after class, but I do need to take, this lecture fortunately is not as long as many of the lectures, but it still does take about 30 to 40 minutes to get through it. So let me segue to the lecture, and I'll still be here after class, so I'll be happy to take questions and the like after class. So there was a couple things that I did not mention last time that I just wanted to go over. So one thing you should know just about direct manipulation interfaces is that direct manipulation interfaces are best for novices and intermediate, what we call intermediate users. And the reason is they rely on your recognition memory. Okay, so novice is because they rely on recognition memory, what we call recognition memory. Okay, experts rely on what's called recall memory. Means they've memorized things and they can bring it out from by just typing. They don't need to look. So for example, if I want to open a file, a new user, a novice user, an intermediate user knows that it's probably here under file and says, oh, it's open, but they don't know the command. Now you'll notice over here, there's this option or command O. So an expert user knows that command O opens it, and they don't even look at the menu. They just do the command O and it opens up. So direct manipulation interfaces work best for novice and intermediate users. Experts actually often prefer a non-direct manipulation interface like a terminal window because they actually find that the pictures get in their way. They would actually rather just type things out because it's faster to type than it is to take your fingers off the keyboard put them on a mouse, drag the mouse around to get to the right command, and then take your hands off the mouse back on the keyboard, you lose time doing that. So that's one thing that you should know. The other thing I did not really talk about is how events are handled by the operating system. So basically you have devices like a mouse, a keyboard, a microphone, and possibly other input devices. Right now I'm working with a tablet. And they all generate events. And that comes into the OS. And the OS creates what's called an event queue, a FIFO event queue, that contains all of the events. And it dispatches events to the Windows system, which is typically part of the kernel. The Windows system then dispatches the event to a window manager. And that is at the application level. It's the thing that adds decorations to your window. So for example, this Mac has these 3 buttons at the side. It has this title at the top. These are called window decorations. They're applied by the window manager. And finally, the event goes to an appropriate application. So the window manager gets first crack at an event. So for example, if I were to click on this red button, the window manager would consume that event and make the window disappear. So the window manager has first call on any events that come in. The other thing is, you may have noticed that when you get a new input device, like the tablet I'm using, I had to load a piece of software. It's often called an event driver. What that software does is it maps events that the input device generates to events that the OS recognizes. Because the OS may not recognize the specific events that are generated by my tablet. So an event driver is a piece of software that you typically have to load whenever you put a new device or attach a new device to your computer. That event driver software, so software, it maps the events that your input device is generating to events that that OS recognizes. So typically when you have a device, new device, you'll see that it has an event driver for Windows, an event driver for Mac, if you're lucky, event driver for a Chromebook, maybe for Linux, and that's what's going on. That's why you have to load that event driver so that it can map the events it's generating to events that the OS recognizes. Okay, so those were the 2 things that I didn't get to last time. So today, we want to cover what are called widgets. And as I said last time, a widget is an application independent object that has predefined graphics and behavior. And allows you to either perform an editing or impact task. Or it displays application state information. Or it may also describe the input task. So the book does a nice job of going through a number of example widgets and giving you some nice programs, which I encourage you to actually copy and run. But I'm not going to go over the specifics of each of those widgets in this class. It could take days actually to go through how to do each widget, and it would be terribly boring. What I am going to do is talk about when you use each kind of widget to give you an idea of when you should use each type of widget and some of the design considerations that go into them of how to, when to use each of them. So there's kind of often called a taxonomy of widgets. Okay, the first kind are ones that are basically information only. They are not meant to do editing. And those are things like text labels, images, progress bars, tooltips. These all give you information, but you're not doing any edits on them. So Java has different widgets that handles. So if you want to display either a text label or an image, you actually use a J label. If you want to do a progress bar, it's a J progress bar. And if you want a tooltip, they have a J tooltip. So that's the first kind of widget. Second kind of widget are choice widgets, which allow you to select one or more choices from a set of choices. And you're probably familiar with them. Radio buttons are for exclusive, are mutually exclusive. Checkboxes allow you to select one or more choices or no choices, so they're not mutually exclusive. And then you have command buttons that allow you to do commands. For example, if I want to print something, continue and cancel are command buttons. Those allow me to do commands. Okay, there's another kind of choice widget that is a menu, but I have it listed under container widgets because a menu is actually a collection of menu items rather than just being one thing. So it's normally, a menu is normally classed as a container object. Now, a question often comes up, do I use a menu or do I use radio buttons or checkboxes? And the answer comes down to the number of items. So if it's generally less than 7 items, you'll typically use radio buttons or checkboxes. And if it's greater than 7 items, you'll typically use a menu. And the reason comes down to human short-term memory. So you can hold roughly the average adult can hold 5 to 7 items in what's called working memory. So just like a computer has working memory, which is its RAM, and which goes away when you turn it off, and it has secondary storage, human memory is somewhat like that too. We have working memory, which is like our RAM, and then we have long-term memory, which is like secondary storage. So if you have fewer than 7 items, most humans can look at that list and instantly put all 7 items into working memory and then choose the correct item they want to select, which gives you effectively order 1 or constant time. If it's greater than 7 items, they can't all fit in memory at once, and the human resorts to linear search, which becomes order n. So again, fewer than, less than or equal 7 items, you typically use radio buttons or checkboxes. More than 7 items, you typically use a menu. The other difference between radio buttons and menus is that typically the radio buttons and the checkboxes are all displayed, whereas for a menu, you only see a placeholder like file, and then when you click, you get a list of the things. So this actually right here, these 4 are like, well, these are like radio buttons right here. These 4, so I select any of them and I get something. Whoops, but I would like to get rid of that now. Unfortunately, I don't think I can. There we go. Okay, so they are all displayed, whereas with a menu has a smaller footprint, and only when you click on this placeholder does it display all of its items. You'll also notice these separators right here, and right here. I know it's kind of small, but these separators are separating the items into groups. And you'll notice that all the groups are less than 7 items. So in fact, what this menu is trying to do is, even though it's longer than 7 items, it's trying to create groups of 7 items or less. And that will aid someone like an expert user who knows, roughly speaking, where the command is on that menu. And then their eye will travel, let's say, directly. They know export as is roughly 2/3 of the way down the menu. So their eye will automatically go about 2/3 of the way down the menu and focus just on that one group. And because you've used these separators, they've found that in essence, the human eye focuses only on that one group. And again, you can load those 5 items into your working memory and instantaneously get the choice. So those separators work really well for both expert users who can go directly to this part of the menu. Plus, it actually tends to work kind of well for other users because at least it's grouping them into related sets of commands. You'll also notice here these keyboard shortcuts. Those are in fact for your power users, for your expert users who know what to look for. Okay, and again, there are, for each of these, I'm not going to go through them, but for each of these, there's, well, I will. For This is a J radio button. And we have a J checkbox. And for command buttons, they are called a J button. Okay. So information widgets, choice widgets. The next type of widgets are number widgets. And as you might imagine, they enter a number in a bounded range. So you have sliders, which in Java is a J slider. You have scroll bars. Which you basically never use in Java because they're associated with J scroll panes. So they're typically used for scrolling windows. So you very rarely use a scroll bar explicitly. And then there are spinners. The book went over spinners, so I won't. So the question often arises, when should I use a slider? When should I use a spinner? And when should I just enter the number using a text box? So the rule of thumb for a slider is that it's limited by the number of pixels on the screen. So for example, if your screen resolution, if you only have 5,000 pixels, then you can't enter more than 5,000 numbers because you can only map one pixel to one number. And in general, you want to allow a little wiggle because we can't exactly do it. So typically it's limited by the number of pixels on the screen divided by either 2 or 3 so that you have a little wiggle room. So each number is normally mapped to either 2 or 3 pixels. So if you can get that onto the screen, you can use a slider. Otherwise, a spinner or a text area works well. So spinners still work well when you have a bounded set of values. And text works with unbounded. So for example, zip codes, telephone numbers are examples of things that are numbers. Salaries, those are all things that are numbers, but because they are relatively unbounded, you have to use a text box, a text field, because there's just not enough screen space to provide a value for every possible salary, zip code, or telephone number. Okay, then you sometimes, by the way, with choice widgets, there are others. So for example, with choice widgets, let me just say, over the years, you also have added things like file choosers, date choosers, color choosers. So over the years, there have been additional choice widgets added that are specific for certain types of data, like a file. In fact, I think it was 15.11 today of the book went over 15.11 went over file choosers. So those are some other examples of choice widgets that allow you to select something from a set of choices. Okay, then fourth type of widget is in fact text widgets. They should be your widget of last resort, but of course, a lot of people use them for their first resort, and that's not good. So they're the most flexible type of widget because they allow you to input any possible value. And there are multiple in Java. There are several types. There is the J text field and J formatted text field for single line input. You have J text areas for multi-line input. You also have a password widget. I forget, I think it may be called J password that will allow you to enter a password, but it obscures the character so you can't see what's being entered. So a JText field allows you to enter unformatted data. A J-formatted text field requires that you enter formatted data. So a J-formatted text field cuts down on the number of improperly formatted entries. So a J-formatted text field reduces or eliminates improperly formatted input. And you can do things that the book, I believe, had an example with the J formatted text fields. You have number formatters. You have date formatters. And you have something called, I believe it's a mask formatter that allows you to specify things. So for example, with a mask formatter, I could specify a social security number using this pattern, where the number, that hash mark specifies that I want a number. The dashes would be put in place by the formatter. So in fact, I have an example of that I can show you. So here I was creating a new mask formatter, gave it this string, and when it's displayed, you can see over here that there's two dashes, and that when I select it, I can enter something and it immediately moves the dash to the next correct field. So it immediately pushed the caret, or yeah, the cursor over those dashes. Okay, so that's the nice thing about a formatter. Okay, but you should only use these text widgets as a last resort because it's super easy to enter invalid information. And also they rely on recall memory rather than recognition memory. So problems Okay, even with these mask formatters, you might easier to enter invalid data. And two, it is forces the use of recall memory rather than recognition memory. So those other sliders, the choice sliders, the number sliders, they all use recognition memory. They're easier and more likely to get a correct answer or correct data. Okay, so then the last type of widget is container widgets, which are collections of other widgets. Okay, so collections of other widgets. So examples of that are dialog boxes, which is a JDialog. Menus, again, I called them choice. I also labeled them under choices, so you get that with a J menu. You can have a list, which is a J list. And it looks like a menu, except it has only a limited number of choices, and then you scroll through the choices. You have combo boxes, which combine a text field with a drop-down menu. So let's see if I can find that quickly. So here's you can see here that it's a combination. You can either enter a text field or it's a drop-down menu and you can select one of the choices. So if you know what you want, you can quickly type it in. If you don't know what you want, you can select from the menu. So it caters to both expert and novice users. A JList let's see if we can get images. So a JList, this is an example of a list right here. And there could be more than 3 elements. If there's more than 3 elements, then you get a scrolling bar that allows you to scroll through the choices. So those are your various types of widgets. You have your container widgets, you have your text widgets, number widgets, choice widgets, and then information only widgets. And then just quickly, I'm actually going to here go to my notes because I have only a limited amount of time to cover it. So I'm going to go over by just a couple minutes, but I do want to hit these design considerations. So when you are designing widgets, the first thing you have to care about is that screen space is limited. So some non-container widgets are always displayed like radio buttons and checkboxes, whereas container widgets normally just have a label or something. And when you click on the label, they then acquire their real estate and they will come up as a dialog box. So container widgets take up a lot more space and therefore they acquire their real estate when they're activated, whereas non-container widgets like radio buttons and checkboxes are always present, whether or not they are activated. Second consideration is that sometimes you disable choices, like here in Firefox, whoops, right now in this edit, you can see that undo, redo, and delete are grayed out. They're considered disabled. So in this case, they have resources. Undo, redo, and delete have acquired screen space, but they're still disabled because they're not acceptable for input. And the reason they're there is for expert users, the length of the menu is always the same. So they can use that length to gauge where to look in the menu for an item. They always have an idea of where that item is located. For a novice user, they won't go looking some other place thinking, oh, since it wasn't in the edit menu, delete must be in some other menu. Instead, they say, oh, delete is here, but it's not available to me, so I won't go looking in other menus. So typically, even when something is disabled, you still show it, but you gray it out to indicate that it's unavailable for some reason. Okay, once a widget becomes active, you want to provide some feedback that allows the user to know that the widget is active. So if I click, notice here that when I go through these choices, I'm getting a background. So if you can't see it, I'll move it down. As I move through these choices, I'm getting feedback and then a tooltip that indicates what's going on. So that's indicating that it's active, that if I click on it now, something will happen. Okay, whereas the others don't have that gray background or tooltip because they're inactive. Then when the user is finished acting on a widget, there should be some kind of echo. So for example, if I click, it comes to a different page, which isn't what I want. But something happens when I finish acting on a widget, and that is called the echo. With a radio button, you would see it be selected with a little dot in the middle. That would be the echo for a radio button. So we've already talked about how you use horizontal separators to group items into sets of 7 or fewer items because of how that takes care of short-term memory. Obviously, you want to group related things together in physical proximity. With menus, it turns out that breadth is preferential to depth. So you never want more than, for example, 3 levels of menus. I don't think I have. So here's a 2-level menu. The arrow makes me go to another menu. You never want more than 3 levels of this. You'd rather have more menus across the top of your window. Okay. And then just a few things about human perceptual system. With the human perceptual system, for whatever reasons, the human eye is drawn to light objects over dark objects. The human eye is drawn to detail and texture over plain or uniform objects. The human eye is drawn to objects with high contrast. The human eye is drawn to large objects rather than small objects. And this kind of is in accord with B, which is varied objects. Objects with texture will draw the human eye more than regular or uniform objects. So these are things to consider, for example, when deciding what kind of background color to use, how large or small to make objects, whether you blur things or make them very sharp. Those are the design considerations you want to take into account. Okay, so with that, you should be able to finish the quiz for today. I will see you on Tuesday when we will take the test. Thursday, we will pick back up with how you lay out widgets in a window. And also, I'll probably go a bit over event handling on, no, I'll probably wait on with event handling until a bit after that. Okay, at any rate, I'll let you all go now. If you have questions, feel free to stick around. I'll be here to answer them. And otherwise, I will see you on